Thank you, Revati, and also the Neelam Productions for inviting me to come and be here as part of this historic exhibition. It's been a privilege to come and see the works of mainly Venkateshwaran and also Natarajan, his work. I have seen quite a few earlier as I was seeing the works of artists from this region. But it's interesting that some of the important exhibitions which put together and exhibitions which is curated around artists from the margins and also the Dalit art practitioners has been consistently happening in Chennai with the support of Paranjit and also the organization which he heads. I think he extremely from the artist community, I think he deserves a great thank you because he's been spearheading this possibility to kind of bring forward new young artists. The reason also I am saying it because there is a great momentum in Indian art world where the voices from the margins, like which were suppressed earlier, are coming back with great understanding, with a very strong Ambedkarian aesthetic belief and strong rigor. And most of the works are produced from the context of memorializing, and at the same time, the works are retrieving some archives which were put aside. Most of the artists, who are also doing quite well, from the early modernist period, who were also not part of the mainstream discourses earlier, and they are getting a completely different kind of a recognition nationally, internationally, and also in regional exhibitions. I would say, one of my teacher, who taught me art and aesthetics, I'm always privileged, to be his student in JJ School of Art, Professor Y.S. Alone, he's also been spearheading one of a very important movement, which he kind of very interestingly titled, Protected Ignorance. And he also now recently has come up with, very interesting point of view to ignite and also to support and academically, and also intellectually support the young artists who have, most of them never had that kind of an upbringing, but what they carried with them is the memories of struggle, memories of living in a very alienated atmospheres, living in in a very difficult, premises in urban spaces, migrating from villages to kind of escape casteist, living conditions, financial struggles. And they came, most of the Indian urban spaces accommodates artists who have migrated from the, the extreme margins. I'm also an artist like that who left, from Kerala, went, to Bombay to study at the time of 92 when the Babri Masjid demolition happened. That also transformed my idea of looking at, the world we are in. And I have seen many of my colleagues carrying, similar kind of works which Venkateshwaran and Natarajan, especially in a current context, I would say Natarajan's work, which also carries a certain kind of an ecological concern, which is troubling us. Because his works are very amphibious in that sense. It connects us with, oceanic memories. It connects us with our ecological, spaces. It also brings forward, the crisis of human. And he also forces us to think beyond human. That kind of an imagery which he is bringing in. And another important thing which I've always observed, living in Bombay is the way some of the most interesting languages which emerged in the recent times, which has also traveled internationally across, they all come from young Dalit artists. Because I can take many names who are also my friends, studied with me. And I would say there is a reason for it. The reason is it is not the, it's actually a kind of a great understanding about the constitutional morality, and also going back to, the way the constitution was structured, even the art in the constitution was structured where, see, a great amount of like exclusions, because people say, because I also noticed the way Revati, when he explained the work starting from the Madras school, it's a very interesting idea to kind of own those kind of discourses in a time like this, because in a post-independent India, when India was looking at, in not just post-independent, post-partition period, when constitution was getting structured, there's a very interesting collective discourse which also emerges around the Nehruvian cosmopolitanism, which comes with institutional thinking, a great amount of participation in uniting the nation. I think culture has played a big role. It has happened in Baroda, it has happened in Shantiniketan, it happened in Bombay, it happens very much in the early 50s, in a place like Chennai. In fact, Chennai was one of the center, because Chennai has a very interesting evolutionary history when it comes to a kind of colonial, ways which taught us a certain kind of artistry. But Chennai resisted at some point. So it also came up with a very different kind of an articulation in their work. They started telling their own stories. So I think whatever is happening since last 4 or 5 years here, which is allowing the youngsters to look into a space which also allows them to tell their own stories. So I think which was never accommodated or accepted or celebrated by even by the galleries and institutions and museums and curators. Anybody, any cultural thinker. But now you hear an Ambedkarian aesthetics is very rigorously discussed with artistic reference in Columbia University. It's a very interesting time that also Indian art historians and curators are looking at with a sense of guilt. Oh, we didn't see this. At the time we should have been. So there's a kind of a discourse emerging around that. And I think in a Chennai context, I always feel that, I've also exhibited here before. I'm also observing some of the exhibition projects which is happening here, whether it is Chennai Photo Biennial. But I always feel that, something which I also wanted to kind of share with all you youngsters and, the people who are engaged in an intellectual exercise to kind of trigger the young. I think, any projects that which is curated or, which is attempting to kind of revive or unify a society, I think it has to reflect on the community which is living around. You should have a sense of ownership, shared with them. So that is one way of, moving forward. Maybe I could just give one example about, I'm not going into the detail of the Kochi Muziris biennial making, but I would like to, give a very different kind of maybe analogy to understand why, the Kerala or the Kochi Muziris Biennale became very successful, and what was the seeds which was put before. So I was referring to you about 1992, the year the Babri Masjid demolition happens, but it was also the time India was getting liberalized. India was looking, to have a very completely different kind of a discourse. India was also looking, out for new possibilities. India was welcoming in investments, thought processes. But Kerala took a very interesting decision around the same time, led by a progressive government. Kerala started Technopark in 1995. It was a great beginning where youngsters were diverted into understanding the possibilities of technology to kind of move forward rather than go back to a very conservative, fundamentalist region that which was triggering the mind of youngsters very differently. It was creating enmity in them. It was, creating polarization. And I'm just saying it because there is a continuity to it. In 2006, in Kerala, similar like Kiladi, what is happening today, Kerala started Pattanam excavation, the Museums Heritage Project. It was the same time, interestingly, when the archaeologists or historians were digging for finding historic evidences of Kerala's past, trade narratives, oceanic imagination, histories of cultural pluralism, religious assimilation. It was interesting that Kerala started a startup mission, which was again a technological initiative which allowed the youngsters not to, go back into the complexities of history, which gets manipulated through archaeological sites, but they were told that, be scientific about the evidences which you get. So it's another junction in Kerala's history. And when Biennial came in 2012, after 6 years, it was again interesting. There was another big technological leap Kerala takes, and it was called, Startup Village, which was instrumental in making youngsters think that there is this parallel force which takes us ahead, which is technologically centered. It is scientific, which is about amphibious futures we might enter into. So I just thought, maybe it's an interesting, rather than talking about art history, biennial making, celebrating communities, how does a society thought that you don't miss the boat? So you have to, take a young generation, save them from falling from the traps of fundamentalism. So it's very interesting to say that I always tell my young colleagues, because I do a little bit of a mentorship program, after starting the Students' Biennale or other curations. I always tell that when I see youngsters coming from very, deprived situations, families, economic backgrounds, I think the most powerful investment which you can bring into art is your imagination. That transforms. So I think we have seen many of such incidents in recent history, consistently transforming even the Dalit practices. There is a lot of an emancipatory discourses. There's a new aesthetic discourse. I would also qualify an exhibition like this a step forward, and supports like Paranjit is doing for, the people who are thinking different, who have stories to say, who has a different, articulation, who has a strong belief in, Buddhist ideologies, who have a strong belief in constitutional moralities, and also using constitution as a weapon to resist. So I congratulate Venkatesh and Natarajan on this occasion, and I hope I will get some opportunity also to work with him in the future. Thank you.